and then we'll talk.
All right. So we'll just do a quick countdown then, and we'll just launch into it. So you're just gonna go into introductions and stuff, right? Okay.
Exactly.
All right. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome, everyone. This is Michael Pelias for the next episode of Prosperity Marxism. We hopefully will be joined by my co-host, Peter Bratsis, but if not, we're here today with our friend and comrade from Paris, Denis Broe, who is a cultural commentator and writer, very prolific. His articles can be found on Substack, Cultural Politics for Those Who Care, and his books on television, which will be.
Wait, can we start? We may have to start. I just want to see, Josh, I've got the 3 windows at the top of my screen. Is that what you're seeing when you record, or do you just see me?
Just the live view, whatever is being presented. It's the presentation view, basically, only.
Okay, great. Okay,
so I'm sorry, again, Josh.
We have to start again. Yeah.
And we'll start again.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're starting again. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Give me the countdown. Okay.
All right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome, everyone. This is the latest episode of Prosperity Marxism. I think it's number 22 of our series that began about 3 years ago. This is Michael Pelias, one of the co-hosts for Prosperity Marxism. We may be joined by our co-host, Peter Bratsis. It's early in the morning here in New York City, but hopefully he will join us. If not, we're pleased again to have our comrade and good friend from Paris, Denis Broe, today to join us on a topic that's very pressing, streaming and striking. We're going to be engaging some of the manifestations of what has happened in Hollywood with writers, etc., and also the Screen Actors Guild strike, and how this is now contributing to maybe a sea change in the way business is done in Hollywood. And we'll speak to this. But first, let me introduce Denis once again for our viewers who don't know him. Denis is a writer and a cultural commentator whose articles can be found on Substack under Cultural Politics for Those Who Care. And his books on TV, among other books, but his books on television include Diary of a Digital Plague Year, Corona Culture, Serial TV, and the Rise of the Screening Service. And secondly, Birth of the Binge, Serial TV, and the End of Leisure. We did a session on Prosperity Marxism a little bit based on that book about a year ago. And then Maverick, or How the West Was Won, and this may come up in today's discussion, one of the major forces behind Maverick and the whole question of residuals. So I want to welcome Denis. Today we're going to look at in the light of the current strike of the screen.
Just want to say one thing. It's called Maverick, or How the West Was, it's called Maverick, or How the West Was Lost.
Was lost. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was won at that point, but lost. Okay, my apologies. Etc. I was thinking of a friend's book, How Israel Was Won. So my apologies on that. But anyway, we'll go back. We'll go back to that book later in the show. But anyway, just to introduce, we're going to be talking about the streaming revolution, if you will, or evolution in Hollywood. We can certainly play with those two terms, and the strike that's going on right now, the writers' strike, the WGA, Writers Guild of America strike that began early May of 2023. I think May 2nd was the date they went out. And then they were joined by the SAG, or the Screen Actors Guild, and American Federation of TV and Radio Actors Union as well, on I think July 14th, just recently, about 2 weeks ago. They were joined on the picket line, but then the Actors Guild went out then. And just as a reminder to people, the last time these two unions went out was during the time of Ronald Reagan in 1960, when he was head of the Screen Actors Guild. This is the last time these two unions were out at the same time. So just to give a little bit of a historical marker for this. And the last strike, if I'm not mistaken, was 1980 in terms of an actor's strike. But Denis can correct me on this. I like the dates because it gives us, again, a historical context and to see the changes that have happened in the industry. So today we're going to talk about, he's written an article about this that he'll speak to and that we're going to link afterwards. One longer article that's going to be published in Jump Cut, the film magazine, but the one that he just put out was on the corporate lords, right, and the strike itself. So we'll be speaking to that today, as well as precepts that he really wants to engage in terms of where the strike comes from, et cetera. And maybe we can work through these precepts so that the one result of this movement to streaming services and new ways of keeping the books in Hollywood and this kind of movement towards AI seems to work on three levels: inflation and the inability of writers and actors to live in LA because the rent, as we say in New York, is too damn high. And Josh and I know that very well, living in New York. And then secondly, the new kind of concealing of profits, which Wall Street is excellent at, and something very under-theorized, how easily it is to say we're broke, right? Both in terms of a strike and in any labor struggles, when you're really not broke because the industry is built on a residual moment, right, that we'll try to address. And then thirdly, of course, how this strike is partially about reclaiming the residuals. And then, of course, the piecemealing of work, and what the corporate sector calls innovation is basically a new kind of automation and piecemealing of work, and how the gig economy has developed here, and the relationship of all this to AI and ChatGPT and other quote unquote new tools of artificial intelligence. So I'm going to turn it over to Denis, maybe to introduce some of these themes that we'll be addressing today, but also maybe to contextualize the strike and contextualize streaming better for our viewers. So please, Denis, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Well, first of all, one thing is the number of people who are out on strike. The Screen Actors Guild is 160,000. The writers are 11,000. So you've got 171,000 workers out on strike and on picket lines, and they're highly, highly visible. And that's new. I'll talk a little bit about the strike, and then I want to go back and give the context for the strike, and that talks about some of the things that you're talking about, Michael. That's really new to have them so visible, and this is in a moment where labor is very visible, starting to be visible again in the U.S. And why are they on strike? Well, okay. Now we have to talk about some of the conditions of work within the industry, about where the industry is at the moment, how they're trying to retrench, and how they're trying to save money on the backs of the workers who created this very profitable industry of streaming. So that's a thing. But let's start with what's been going on in the industry. Generally, the refusal of the producers to negotiate, and that's one of the things that prompted the strike. They will not come to the table. There's a motion by the Los Angeles City Council telling them to come to the table, demanding they come to the table, but they don't. This is cost cutting for them. They feel that, one of the ways, they're retrenching. I'll go into why they're retrenching in a few minutes, but they're retrenching. And one of the ways they feel, they feel they can just cut back and not pay actors and not pay writers. Unfortunately, actually, so the actors and writers suffer, but also viewers suffer. I mean, what they've got in store for people in the fall television season is ridiculous. ABC has a Thursday night of 3 hours of game shows. That's what we're talking about, you know? And the whole idea of streaming was built on writers. That's what it is. It's the new dominance of the writer in television, sometimes called the showrunner, but who also had a writing room with all of these writers underneath them. And that's what created the care, you know, that crafted some of these series, that created these profits, and that said to Hollywood, look, we've got to get into streaming. And with COVID, they all rushed to get into streaming. Okay. Then what happened though was, you know, it's funny because last October I gave a talk called The Meteoric Rise and Even Faster Fall of Streaming, because it is in a slightly perilous position now, which is not to suggest that it's not creating a good deal of profit that's not being shared. Okay. But the fact is, what's happened is streaming is one of those industries, one of those, you know, it's a digital industry, one of the industries that Marx calls a house of cards. That is, they're all in debt, and the debt is enormous. Warner Brothers is in debt. I can't remember the figure, but it's like 147. It's, I don't know, 47 billion or something like that. They claim that they didn't lose much money in the first quarter, and that's a huge success for them. Disney Plus owes 50 billion and hopes that they might be profitable by 2024. However, when we say profitable, each of these companies has a huge company behind it. So when Amazon says they're losing money in streaming and Apple says they're losing money in streaming, this is one of the big differences. They're not in the business of streaming. Streaming is